Appraisal 1, Chapter 2. In this chapter, we will continue our review of the basic appraisal forms. We reference a few different approaches to appraisal as we explain different parts of the form. We explain those concepts in detail in other appraisal courses. This section is very important and is typically highly scrutinized by the underwriter. For a single-family residence intended for owner occupancy, this is the area of the appraisal, which establishes the appraised value of the property. The top two lines of the section are new to this version of the appraisal form. Here, the appraiser reports how many comparable properties are currently listed, along with how many comparable properties sold within the last 12 months preceding the appraisal in the subject's neighborhood. This gives the underwriter more information regarding the market for the subject property. The market approach is used for a residential property which is going to be owner-occupied either as a primary or secondary residence. The market approach compares the subject property with similar or like properties which have sold. The appraiser then adjusts for any differences in the property. This section of the appraisal reveals the analysis of the property under the market approach. The market approach is the most common appraisal approach in the residential mortgage industry. The other two approaches, which we will discuss later, are the cost approach and the income approach. The far left-hand column lists the main features of the subject property. Most of this information is also contained on the first page of the appraisal, which we've already reviewed. The subject property's characteristics are listed in order to facilitate comparison with other comparable sales. The appraisal form requires at least 3 comparable sales to be listed. If the appraiser feels more comparable sales are warranted, additional comparables can be listed in an addendum to the appraisal. The comparable sales are identified by address and proximity to the subject in the top portion of the remaining 3 columns. All comparables should be within the subject's neighborhood as described on the first page of the appraisal. The sales prices and sales dates for the comparables are also reported. The appraiser also calculates the cost per square foot based on the sales price in the above grade square footage of the comparable sales. The source of the comparable sales information is also disclosed. Comparable sales information is normally obtained from local multiple listing services managed by real estate agents. However, a property may be used as a comparable sale even if it was not sold through the multiple listing service. The appraiser would need to obtain independent verification of the transaction and the property description. Many appraiser associations maintain their own databases, which could also serve as information sources. The 3 comparables must be sold properties, rather than properties just listed for sale. The appraiser may include current listings as additional comparables. However, at least 3 of the comparable sales must have sold within the last 12 months. While they will allow comparables sold within 12 months, Fannie Mae prefers comparables which have sold within the last 6 months prior to the appraisal date. If the appraiser uses a comparable sale which sold between 6 and 12 months prior to the effective date of the appraiser must justify and explain its use. After the comparable sales are identified, they are described in the remaining 3 columns. For example, the actual age of the subject property and all 3 comparable sales are listed in the grid on the actual age line. The grid makes a comparison between the characteristics of the subject property and the comparable sales very simple. The adjustment is listed next to the detail of the comparable sales characteristics. For example, if the comparable sale has a larger lot than the subject property, the comparable sale is more valuable when analyzing only lot size. In other words, if the 2 properties were absolutely identical, other than the lot size, the property with the larger lot would be more valuable. Let's assume the comparable sale sold for $200,000. The comparable sale is absolutely identical to the subject property except the lot sizes. The comparable sale sits on a half an acre lot and the subject property sits on a quarter-acre lot. If all the other characteristics are identical, the subject property with the smaller lot size will be worth less than the $200,000 sales price of the comparable sale. This adjustment process is used for a list of 21 property characteristics. The form allows for the appraiser to add additional characteristics for which adjustments will be made. The adjustments, both up and down, are totaled at the bottom of each column. While most of the adjustments are fairly intuitive, one of the lines on the grid warrants additional explanation. The appraiser is required to report whether or not any of the comparable sales involved any seller-paid concessions. For example, the appraiser would be required to report if a seller paid closing cost for the buyer.